In this video, I'm going to talk to you guys all about the Thumbpick, a little device made famous by so many guitarists. It's still used all around the world today, including by Brazilian guitarists. This little device here was used by many American guitar players like Chet Atkins, Merle Travis, Lenny Breau, Guy Van Duzer, Tommy Emmanuel, and many more. And I'm going to tell you about the implications of using this particular device when playing fingerstyle guitar. Maybe you're transitioning into classical guitar, sort of like I am. Let's go over the implications that it has on your technique, how it changes the sound of the guitar, what sound does it have to begin with. I've been using it for 10 years. Just now in the last year or so, I've been transitioning my plucking hand technique more towards a more classical type of approach because I've been working on various arrangements of music by Bach. Everything I'm saying here is things that I've discovered on my own, experimenting with these various techniques and also jamming with other musicians, listening to how my technique sounds compared to how they sound or the sound that they're making with their guitar. I've had to move a little bit away from the Thumbpick for a few reasons. I'll give you guys sort of my opinion on this. This is a very old Spanish guitar I'm playing. It's not as good as my other classical guitar, but I like it. It has sentimental value to me, so that's why I play it right now. Now, the main thing with the Thumbpick is that it allows you to put your plucking hand in a position where you can palm mute the strings, similarly to the way you would do it if you're playing with a pick. Palm muting is when you use the flesh of your palm over here to mute the string or dampen the string slightly. By the way, this is just a simple Dunlop medium left-handed Thumbpick, because they do make them in left-handed. You get your palm on the string, it dampens it a little bit. Because it's a plastic pick, you can get a good amount of attack. When doing the thumb and finger technique, you're doing something like this. Maybe you might be doing... You hear that type of bass line? It's impossible to get that sound, or I would say it's very difficult to get that sound without the Thumbpick. Reason is, without the Thumbpick, you cannot palm mute and put your thumbnail in a position where you can get a good amount of attack on the note. It is possible to get a good attack using a thumbnail. If you shaped your thumbnail, work out a very good sound with the thumbnail. The thing is, you can't get that type of sound, that attack, and also palm mute the string with your palm. That's the thing. That's the main technical boundary of using a Thumbpick or not. First thing is, the Thumbpick is a little bit more noisy on the strings depending on your technique. So if you're doing a lot of like, and the faster you play notes with your thumb, there's a brief moment where the plastic material of the pick is resting on the string. You hear it? And it creates that high-pitched sound. That is not something you get when you're playing with your thumb. In my case, that could be a deal breaker. Lately, that's been a bit of a deal breaker for me, which is that the Thumbpick gives a little bit more of a plasticky sound on the string, and you'll hear it in your recordings. Now, you may want that depending on the music you're playing. If you're playing a lot of ragtime fingerstyle arrangements where the bass needs to be nice and staccato, sort of like the Chet Atkins style, or guitarists that I like Guy Van Duzer, then the Thumbpick makes a lot of sense. There's certain arrangements where you would need the Thumbpick. For example, let's say I want to do a piece of this Guy Van Duzer arrangement, Viper's Drag, where he's going, you know. Well, I could probably do it without. I'd have to figure out a way to work on my picking hand a little. Let's just take the bass, for example. Even when you go in here, you could sort of fake that, but it's not the same. You can't do it with this angle. That's the thing. Without the Thumbpick, you cannot play in this particular angle that is used when playing Chet Atkins, Guy Van Duzer arrangements. Without the Thumbpick, requires you to play in more of an open hand classical position where the thumb is pointing more towards the string like this, instead of like this, going sort of in the same direction of the string, because you have to physically play with the thumbnail. I would say that is the main advantage of using a thumb pick. But as soon as you start doing music that is more polyphonic, where it's all about counterpoint, the thumb pick struggles, and also because it's a little bit noisy. Now, the thing that's really interesting about playing the fingerstyle guitar is that depending on the angle you strike the string at, you can drastically change the tone. So if you angle your wrist upwards like this, you'll get a brighter sound. If you come in a bit, you get a warmer sound. And then also if you change the angle of your hand like this, you can also change the tone as well. The more you go like this, you can kind of get a warmer sound. If you go up like this, your hands will shift towards the bridge, so you'll get a little bit of a brighter sound. So you sort of have to find the balance that works for you for whatever piece that you're trying to play. I think it's very important to have repertoire and pieces to play to try this stuff on. I'm going to play you a few bars of the Goldberg Variation number 1 arranged by Joseph Eötvös. And I'll play it with the thumb pick first, just so you can hear the difference. So the bass goes like this. Now, that already is a very difficult passage to play. Now, I actually find it harder to play with the thumb pick. One reason, because the thumb pick adds weight to your hand. But I definitely find it easier to play it without the thumb pick, and I also find it sounds better without the thumb pick, because with no thumb pick, just straight thumbnail and fingers, gives you a little bit more of a balanced sound between the thumb and melody notes. As opposed to with the thumb pick, it's going to give it more attack, and you may not want that attack. In the case of Bach, you want the melody and the bass line to be more or less balanced, since it's two voices. Let me give you another example. Okay, so I'm going to play this piece by Guy Van Duzer, and take note of the angle of my hand. I'm going to be playing it with the same angle, normally, because I'm used to playing this piece with the angle of having the thumb pick. When you have the thumb pick on, your hand is pretty limited in terms of what it can do, because now you have to attack the string in a certain way. So you can no longer do stuff like this, but my hand does feel a little bit less nimble with the thumb pick on. So a piece like this, which is arranged by Guy Van Duzer, with the thumb pick, would be like this. Without the thumb pick, let's try it. So immediately you hear the bass has less power. So I can't get the same power if I keep the hand in the same position that it's in, because I'm attacking the string like this with my thumb, you know? Quite able to get that same level of attack unless I slightly adjust how I'm striking the string. So I'm going to try to strike the bass note a little differently using my thumbnail instead. Because I'm doing that, it messes with my technique here, so it makes it actually harder to play, and I have to sort of relearn or readjust my technique to play this piece. If I shift it more towards like a classical type of technique where the thumbnail is pointing more towards the string to get a little bit more attack. Now I find it harder to mute the strings because I'm not getting the same muted bass. So I can't mute the bass line as well unless I use some sort of other technique to do that. very different playing with the thumb pick versus not. Whenever you're doing that sort of Chet Atkins style, it does sound better to me when you use the thumb pick. This type of bass line can only be achieved by palm muting and using a thumb pick. Basically get a lot more attack with the thumb pick. Now, one of the biggest implications of playing with or without the thumb pick is how it impacts your strumming technique or anything you can do with the thumb. Doing that with a thumb pick, good luck. Because you always get a high attack because the thumb pick is there protruding, it ruins the sound of the strumming, in my opinion. It makes it sound way less natural. And I've always found it hard to control the strumming when I'm wearing this thumb pick. You can still do it a little bit. Going up and down with the thumb pick doesn't sound as desirable because it's so bright. But when you use your thumbnail or even the thumb flesh, you know, you can do just a simple strum. Triplet flamenco one. And that one sounds a lot better without the thumb pick, personally. Up until this point, the main usage for the thumb pick is playing thumb and finger style in the Chet Atkins or Ragtime style, where I need more attack from the bass notes. So I'm going like... where you need that sort of bass line attack. Let me give you one last example. Here's a fugue that I've been arranging by J.S. Bach. Okay, now we'll do it with the thumb pick, and it's going to be more difficult for me to control because the thumb pick is louder. I'll get more volume there and always that consistent attack every time. Whereas when I'm using the thumbnail, now I have to work on shaping the sound with my thumbnail more, as opposed to with the thumb pick, it sort of shapes it for me and it's always the same sound. I do find it's more difficult to play that type of music with a thumb pick because the pick adds weight to my hand. So it actually makes it a little bit physically more difficult to play the guitar if you're doing very technical finger picking patterns. What I realize is that for a lot of music that I'm playing, it actually makes the sound worse. That being said, I do think it gives you a more consistent sound of the bass, but it's consistently loud, and while your fingers are more dynamic, you might have some moments where you play softer, play louder, or you may have struck the string in a certain way. The thumb pick's always going to give you a certain attack that you can't really change. You can't shape it that much. So there's less color, so to speak, when you use just a thumb pick. And you may want that for certain styles. If you're doing thumb and finger arrangements like by Guy Van Duzer, Chet Atkins, Tommy Emmanuel, then you want that type of attack for the bass. You'll use the thumb pick for that. But for a lot of polyphonic music where you need more balance between the thumb and melody, you should not use it, because you can get quite a deep, good attack just using a thumbnail. If you've been working on your thumbnail for a while and you shape the thumbnail, and you also work on the technique of playing with the thumbnail, I feel I'm a little more free without the thumb pick. You can shape the sound a lot with your thumbnail, whereas with the thumb pick, there's limits to how you can shape that sound. Let me know your thoughts on some of the things I've talked about here, and I'll hope to see you in the next video where I'll perform a full piece for you. Thank you. Cheers. Take care. Check out this playlist right here to see some of our other videos. Thanks.